Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar session on RRI, Responsible Research and Innovation in the Bioeconomy. My name is Sylvia Schreiber. I'm from CommBeBiz, and I will navigate you through this session with our speaker, Núria Saladié from Barcelona. Núria has studied journalism and has an education as science communicator. She's practicing this as project manager from the IRI project. This is a project dealing with RRI in institutions and curricula of higher education. Núria works at the Universitat Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona, which has an emphasis on humanity and social science, and therefore they took over the coordinator of the IRI project, of which we will hear quite soon more. Next slide, please. First, I want to let you know 7 things you should know on RRI, which is the abbreviation for Responsible Research and Innovation. RRI is crucial for the bioeconomy, tackling grand challenges and involving public acceptance. RRI is also on Big Picnic. This is a project inviting citizens to botanical gardens for discussions on food security. RRI tools offer reflection checklists identifying ethical, social, sustainable issues in research. RRI projects provide guidelines to implement the principles individually and institutionally. RRI libraries offer sets of principles in short fictive cases to train judgments on your own. RRI combines researchers' codes of conduct principles with open science principles. And RRI is for institutions to change governance and curricula, such as the IRI project. With this, over to you, Núria, please. And next slide.
So hello everybody, my name is Núria, as Sylvia presented, and I would like to present to you the IRI project. However, first I would like to start with a presentation, a brief presentation of what RRI is. If we could go to the next slide. So let me start by saying that there is no unique definition of what RRI is. There are different approaches to the definition of RRI, but the one that maybe we can start with, a very basic one, is the one that the European Commission has provided. The European Commission says that that RRI basically is a way of aligning the research and innovation process with the needs, values, expectations of society. To do this, there are 6 key issues that the European Commission has identified as pillars of what an RRI process should have, which are public engagement, gender equality, open access, science education, ethics, and governance. But let me please say that from the IRI project, we want to stress that RRI, as it is, has the potential of being a transformative, critical, and radical concept, because it doesn't only relate to these six key issues, but it also talks about having a critical thinking attitude and being reflective on the research that each scientist is doing, not just scientists, but like as the role that we all have in the research and innovation process. If we can go to the next slide, please. Here I use a diagram that has been developed by the RRI Tools project, as Sylvia was mentioning before. This infographic, I think, portrays quite clearly and in a very visual way how RRI can be understood, at least at a first glance. So we can see here in the center the 6 key issues. So we see ethics, science education, public engagement, open access, governance, and gender equality. And this is surrounded by the 5 group of stakeholders that the RRI Tools project identified as more relevant in this case, which are the policymakers, the education community, business and industry, civil society organizations, and research community. However, these two sets of important members of the research and innovation practice have to be surrounded, and as you can see in the bigger circle, by 4 dimensions, as they say, which are diverse and inclusive, open and transparent, anticipative and reflective, and responsive and adaptive. So these four bubbles in the outside circle are the adjectives that any R&I practice should have. And here in the, as you can see in the lower sentence, it says that working together towards ethically acceptable, socially desirable, and environmentally sustainable products and services. So I hope that this can give you a first glance of what RRI is. I encourage you to go deeper, because it's actually quite it's a very interesting approach, and it's very critical of the research and innovation status right now. But let's move on now, and I would like to give you an example of how RRI is important. And in this example, I took an example from the life sciences. Here I mentioned a paper that was published. So a study from the Netherlands identified that decision-making on burnt research was controlled mainly by scientists, without including the burn survivors themselves. This study compared the priorities of these two groups. And it was quite interesting that they discovered that actually involving burn survivors helped identify new research priorities. For example, treating the itching on burn scars, that the scientists did not identify before. So this is a very simple case of saying how involving different stakeholders and taking into account that there should be a dialogue on the research process. Actually, this process gets enriched and for everyone, because in this particular case, the scientists could broaden the research priorities and the research lines that they were working on, but also the survivors themselves, the burn survivors, who are the patients in this case. They were heard, and the research was working on a way that they were taken into account, which is, of course, how research should be, at least from our understanding and from an RRI understanding of how research should be. So in this point, I would like to introduce you to the IRI project, which is the project that we coordinate from the Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona. What IRI stands for Higher Education Institutions and Responsible Research and Innovation. And what we do in the IRI project, which is a European Horizon 2020 program project, is our aim is to integrate the concept of RRI at all levels of higher education of science and engineering, with the idea that in the future this research and innovation can respond better to the societal needs, values, and expectations. The main idea behind is that if we teach the people that are now studying to become researchers and innovators, when they are actually professionals in the field, they will actually incorporate the RRI principles and an RRI approach to their work, so that in the future, the work that they will do, so their research and their innovation, is going to be more responsible. It's going to be more in a dialogue with society and all the other stakeholders that might be involved in the research somehow. Here I want to mention that it's important to take into account that it's not only a bottom-up approach with RRI as it may seem, but also that it's not just the professors or the society or the stakeholders at the bottom of the research and innovation process. At the bottom, I mean end users. It's not just them asking for being heard, but it also has to be a top-down approach, meaning that if, in this case, universities at the higher levels, they don't get involved with RRI, taking into account that RRI is something that should be implemented in the curricula, then it's going to be very hard to make it a reality. So with the HERI project, we deal with these two approaches, right? With the top-down and the bottom-up. And here I want to present you in the next slide. I would like to present you one of the main results that we have achieved so far, which are the 10 programs, the 10 training programs that we are developing right now. This is a collection of different training programs for different educational levels for higher education institutions, addressing RRI. As you can see, there's a course for bachelor levels, for master's levels, for a PhD. There's also for train the trainers, a summer school, a MOOC, a massive online open course. And they are all addressed to teach to the future researchers the importance of responsible science, which involves reflection, critical thinking, and a transdisciplinary approach to each one's research. We are right now working on the materials of these programs, and by the end of the HERI project, we will have these 10 full training programs ready with the materials for the professors around the world to use, free of charge, open access, available for everyone to try out. And in the next slide, I want to present how we are going to present these training programs to the world. We have a connection with the RRI Tools project that was presented before. They developed a toolkit, and here's the link for any of you that is interested. They developed a toolkit, which is a big repository of RRI related resources that address all sorts of stakeholders, for example, civil society organizations, or the research, or the policymakers, and these resources include many things, for example, manuals or cases of best practices or databases, others. And here is where we are going to upload the HERI training programs. The idea is that from here, anyone will be able to access them, download them, see a little video to get to know how it works, and then hopefully implement them. When that happens, there's also a forum there at the RRI Toolkit that we hope that people will use to send us their feedback. In any case, we will soon be testing these materials before making them available to everyone. We're going to be piloting them internally in the project just to make sure that they are useful and to see how the students react to them. As I said, because they will be in open access, if anyone's interested, once the project is finished, you can all access these materials. And just to finalize, I would like to address you with my last slide to the HERI blog and the communication channels of the HERI project. As you can see, you can just go to www.heri.eu. And you can see the news about the project, the different reports that we have been submitting, information about the first conference, and information about the consortium, so the institutions that are involved in the project, and anything you want. Also, we encourage you to participate in the forum online that we have through our Twitter, our Facebook, or our LinkedIn groups. If any of you has any question, don't hesitate to contact me. In the last slide, you can see my email address. So please write to me if you have any questions, and I would gladly answer. Thank you very much for your attention.
And next slide, please. And there we will have another one. There we'll have Núria's address and also mine. Next slide, please. Oh, we have dark screen. Then I will come back. So something technically went wrong, but no worries. Let me thank you, Núria, for your wonderful presentation, very informative and fresh thinking. I have attendees are allowed, of course, to raise questions in written procedure. I do not see a question so far, but I have one to you, Núria. It's about natural science, so which we are mostly dealing in the bioeconomy with. And you said a good, responsible research would cover ethical acceptability, social desirability, and will also be environmentally sustainable. What are your proposals in the IRI project to teach scientists these virtues or codes? Should it be in the curricula, or should it be in a transdisciplinary study, or should it be after master? What is your practical proposal to bring natural scientists closer to these principles?
Yes, that's a very good question, because that's a debate that we've had, right? How is the best way to teach this principle of RRI? Should we focus on the 6 key issues? Should we try to teach what's ethics, what's science education, why are they important? Or, as we believe actually, we think that what's best to teach RRI is actually, yes, informing about the definition of RRI, of these 6 key issues, but most importantly, what we need to teach is the students to be critical thinkers, to be reflexive on their work, because it comes without saying that if someone is reflexive, if someone is aware of the repercussions of their own work, then there will raise some concerns about ethical questions, also environmental impacts of the research. So, saying that someone has a critical approach to their own work, that also implies that they're going to be aware of the impacts and the repercussions that their research has. So we believe then that, yeah, more than just teaching definitions and just, you know, big words sometimes. It's something a bit more difficult, which is to teach how to be reflexive. And also related to your question, as you were saying, this we believe it is better taught when it's a transversal module, or a transversal subject. However, right now some universities have it a bit harder to actually, you know, have this around the whole curricula, have this RRI approach. So at the beginning, we believe that maybe it's easier to have short workshops, short modules in specific subjects to start dealing with this issue, to start making people think. But hopefully one day, and also depending on the institution, of course, and depending on the educational level, but ideally, it should be a transversal issue, so that in every little subject there would be a component of RRI approach.
Mm-hmm. And has it to be customized to the different subjects? I mean, if you study, let's say, biology, or if you study physics or mathematics or ICT, there might be not one size fits all. Who can do the customization?
Yes, so the definition of RRI, or the approach that, as I was mentioning before, is the same. What changes is the cases and the scenarios that we use to teach what RRI is. So, for example, with the IRI project, what we have seen is that a good way of teaching RRI is using the problem-based learning methodology, which basically consists in presenting scenarios to the students, and scenarios that present some kind of dilemma, some kind of conflict. The students have to resolve themselves during the course. By the end of the course, they will have done the research. They will have reached a solution of the concept of the dilemma presented. And the professor in the problem-based learning methodology acts only as a tutor, as a guide, not as the main actor in the classroom. So this is just to say, sorry for the bit of introduction, but this is just to say that these are scenarios that I was mentioning. These are scenarios that are presenting a conflict, a dilemma, a question that the students have to solve. These are the ones that can change depending on the on the subject itself, on the discipline. However, we also think that it's interesting to have scenarios that are quite transdisciplinary. So, for example, an issue that touches things on biology, but also at the same time touches things on economics or social impacts. For example, the topic of food, anything that has to do with food. FOOD it's quite transversal in the sense that we can look at the environmental impacts that food has. We can also look at the demographic impacts of food and thinking about the population getting bigger. We can also talk about the technology side of food, so how we process it. So yeah, this is one example of a topic that can be approached from many different perspectives, and that is quite interesting to use as a case to then help the students reflect and do their research.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there is a question coming from Rhonda, the coordinator of the CommBeBiz project. She thanks you very much for this informative presentation. And she asks, as well as a focus on services and products, should not there be also a focus on fostering new thinking and perspectives within the wider public? Is there an attempt? Quite at the beginning, you might recall, I mentioned this big picnic project, which organizes sessions for citizens in botanical gardens to think and to reflect on food future. Do you have other examples how involve and to make contact with the broader public and RRI? Are there good examples?
Mm-hmm. So yes, of course, as I said before, one of the 6 key issues of RRI is public engagement. So this implies having this constant dialogue to actually see what ask society as citizens how they perceive science, how they perceive research, what do they expect from it. I can give you a specific example of a European project that now is finished, but it was called NERI, so Neuro Enhancement and Responsible Research and Innovation. And this project, what it did was it organized some public engagement activities around Europe. It was more than 60 public engagement sessions where the public, citizens, but also industry representative, research community representatives, education community, they were all asked about their perception of neuroenhancement, so any technology that has to do with enhancing our brains, which sometimes is perceived as something a bit science fictional, but it is actually not. It's a reality, and there are quite a lot of medicines and brain technologies that are actually making it a reality. So with this project, the main aim was to find out what does the people think about it? How do people react? Does it differ depending on the countries inside of Europe? And yeah, that's what we did. That we were organizing this little, well, I say little, but they were not always little. Some of them were in big music festivals, so some of them were gathering more than 3,000 people. So it's quite a big, it was quite a widespread of different events. Just to ask, just to ask and make people think, and then of course collect these opinions and take conclusions out of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Núria. I think this would also be a good approach for the bioeconomy, because research results are mostly affecting people's lives. They produce food, they change food, they change nature, they change environment, they affect our way we live, our way we consume. And I think citizens' involvement and engagement will be a very, very crucial topic for the future. Okay, now we can see you again, and I think everybody who wants to have Núria slides, you see this handout column line in our panel. You can retrieve the presentation from Núria there. And it will also be uploaded on our website, on the CommBeBiz website, as well as on YouTube. And there you will have Núria's email address and also my email address presented. Thank you very much for attending the webinar. I just can announce our next one. It will be on the 28th of June, and it's about market partner research, Invest Horizon 2020 in the life sciences. So 28th of June, same time, same station. Stay tuned and join CommBeBiz, www.combebiz.eu. There you will find us and a wealth of further information on the bioeconomy. Thank you and goodbye. Goodbye, Núria. Goodbye, everybody.
Right. Thank you very much.
Bye.